Connected Communities programme, what we've got a real focus on is collaborative research. That's precisely what it's about. You know, instead of academics sitting in their studies or their offices, reading their own books and writing their own materials and having their own thoughts and research questions, we want to take academics out into community contexts. And also we want the research questions to be raised, to be explored, constructed, interrogated by partners outside universities in the first instance, and then have academics coming along and helping, you know, people answer those what to them are very useful research questions. And that whole process of knowledge exchange, of co-production, is a really exciting one at the moment within academic work in Britain. And the AHRC is funding lots and lots of projects around that. And the particular emphasis here we've got is around how academics can work in their research with organisations from the creative economy. And in this instance, it's us, a group of jazz scholars and popular music scholars, working with jazz festivals.
Well, I think it's very important. I really admire the work that has been done in research into jazz, sort of documenting the history of the music, audience research, and then just looking at the history and the influence of certain musicians. I mean, jazz has a massive tradition now, and I think it's good that that we document that history of the music.
I'm Ian George and I'm the Cheltenham Jazz Festival Director. Cheltenham Jazz Festival first started in 1996 and was regarded as kind of leading jazz festival in the kind of jazz circles, and started out as a venue-based festival. We did about 10,000 tickets in the early years, and in the last 5 or 6 years the festival has expanded out into the town. It's become more of an traditional outdoor festival. We now do around 20,000 tickets a year. It's over 6 days in the Maybank holiday, and is well known in jazz circles, but also now in the broader music scene. Working with the Arts Humanities Research Council will actually be our debut working with the Research Council, so it's something we're very excited and interested in. For 2014 we're doing a series of talks. We're looking at things such as heritage. One of the cross-festival themes that we have at Cheltenham Festivals is memory, and so we actually tied that into looking at heritage, and obviously very relevant to jazz. It allows us to add a kind of intellectual and academic element to a talk that we may not have had before. As
part of this particular AHRC project, the idea of looking at some of the black British performers, that's planted an idea, and we've gone back to programming Dennis Baptiste and his Let Freedom Ring suite, which was originally commissioned by Cheltenham Jazz Festival. I think it was 10 years ago, and that was one of our most successful commissions. And so the idea of doing what is a follow-up, it's not exactly the same work, a follow-up, that came from discussion with George Mackay.
I think jazz audiences are always an interesting one to kind of look at. They're very kind of receptive to kind of new ideas. Maybe it's something about the music that they love so much. They're very kind of up for new things. I think to have the Research Council at a festival environment is really interesting. I think that can really help kind of how we engage with our audience. So hopefully I think it'll be really useful for the Research Council as well as the festival that people are a bit more relaxed in that kind of environment. So hopefully the kind of what they learn and what they can add to the debates that we have at the festival can be really interesting.
There's a lot of ways in which festivals and research communities, certainly in a jazz setting, complement each other. I mean, festivals are typically places where people come to try out new things. There's a lot of risk-taking that goes on. They encourage people to think about place in a very different way, or they program music perhaps that you might see in a routine manner in normal circumstances in slightly different ways. So you very rarely will go to a festival as a concert goer and think, I'm just going to go to one concert. I want to experience the event, I want to think, suck up the atmosphere and so on. And so from a research perspective, we're doing very similar things. We're trying to encourage people to think in new ways, to make connections between different moments in time, in history and so forth. And so actually working with a festival provides us both with this opportunity to present new ideas to different audiences and also engage audiences in what we're talking about.
One of the things that really struck me when I was looking at jazz festivals research was the fact that the AHRC, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, had recently funded about 4 or 5 different projects all around jazz festivals. There wasn't a kind of grand story or idea there. No one had said, oh, we must do a set of festival-related research projects. I just thought there was something interesting in that cluster coming together. And really that's all to do with, you know, the process of knowledge exchange in the creative economy. You know, so we've got the academics there who have an interest in jazz festivals, in jazz research, in carnivalising popular music. And then we have festival organisers who each year, as part of the seasonal cultural economy, are making their events happen. We thought, well, let's get them talking to each other a bit more and to see what we can learn from that, hopefully, positive and mutually illuminating dialogue.
I'm Jill Roger, I'm the Festival Director of Glasgow International Jazz Festival, which this year will have been running for 28 years. This is our first involvement with Glasgow University Department of Music with our PhD student Alison Eales. We're now into the 3rd year of this and it's going really well. It's been a great success. I think in terms of the history of the festival, there is a sort of large resource of documentary information which has been kept over the last 28 years in terms of press cuttings, contracts, minutes, the old brochures of the festival, the different programmes, the changes in the music throughout those years. It's something that was just in the office and it's fantastic that is a great resource. It's there. And Alison's been able to help us go through all that and document the history of the festival.
My research is supported by a collaborative doctoral award from the AHRC, which means that it's set up in a way that allows me to work with Glasgow Jazz Festival as a research method, alongside doing archive work and interviewing people who've been involved with the festival throughout its history. I think the interesting story about Glasgow Jazz Festival concerns its relationship to its host city, to Glasgow. So my research is focusing on that relationship really in, I guess, 2 different ways. The first is the relationship between Glasgow Jazz Festival and the sort of the actual geography of the city, particularly the Merchant City area, which has changed immensely during the life of the Glasgow Jazz Festival. I think the festival has contributed to that change and it's also benefited from that change over the last 30 years. The other way that the festival relates to the city is in terms of the city authorities and also national authorities and their policies towards arts events. So those are the kind of ways that I'm looking at the festival.
Well, Alison's been a great resource during the festival events. It's good for her to become part of the team and part of the overall production team during the event.
My working relationship with Jill has been the kind of linchpin, I guess, of the research, because she's the point of access to all the research materials that I would need. It would be impossible to do this project, I think, without the support of the director of the festival. She has just, as well as providing access to the archive and putting me in touch with other people, Jill herself has a wealth of knowledge about obviously the festival as an event, about the company that is responsible for the event, and also just generally about the sort of music scenes in Glasgow. Being presented with a challenge where you're sort of given a brief and where you don't necessarily know what the research materials are going to present to you, you do have to sort of be prepared to be flexible in your ideas, to work on the fly, and let the materials guide you.
Jazz is about improvisation. I mean, it's not just about improvisation, it's about composition as well. But the interaction between musicians, listening to what they're doing, reacting to what they're doing, that is similar to a good academic discussion, I would say.
From 2010 to 2013, I was the project leader for a European project called Rhythm Changes. that was funded by the Humanities and the European Research Area, or HERA. Rhythm Changes was a 3-year programme that drew on expertise from 5 European countries and researchers working across 7 universities. The major aspect of the programme was an investigation into festivals. So we worked with a number of European festivals, from Copenhagen Jazz Festival to North Sea Jazz Festival, festivals in Vienna and Stavanger. And one of our biggest partners was the London Jazz Festival, who we started working with in 2010 and we continue to work with today.
I'm John Cumming. I'm one of the 3 directors of Sirius, who are the producers of the EFG London Jazz Festival, which happens in November every year and is 22 in 2014. We expanded what was a festival in the local borough of London, Camden, into a London-wide event with a number of different aims. One was to celebrate the fact that this is a 365-day-a-year jazz city, and where jazz has occupied an extremely important part of the cultural landscape and not just the music landscape, but also because of its ability to cross generations and cross cultural backgrounds. It connected with many different communities within the city. So part of the original vision was to celebrate that, actually.
So London, we started at the beginning with a panel, a public engagement event during the 2010 Jazz Festival, which was actually on the value of jazz festivals themselves. We dubbed it Why Festivals Matter. And we welcomed a whole range of different publics, festival organisers came, and it was a really good opportunity to talk about what festivals mean to people and why they're important and why jazz as well in that particular setting. And the relationships developed from then on. In 2013, the 21st anniversary festival, we worked closely with London Jazz Festival to curate a series of talks under the banner of Thinking with Jazz. Which was a fantastic opportunity to get together, present our findings, present our work, but also to interact with artists that were featured within the programme and also festival organisers themselves. And I think one of the great things about the festival was, this opportunity to sort of bring new ideas on board and actually use jazz as a lens through which to think about much bigger subjects.
We were very conscious that the festival needed also to create a context for itself, in a way. We were finding that actually there was a real appetite from the audience to learn about the music. It's connecting that kind of discourse, debate, provocation with the main part of the programme. And last year we talked in much more depth with Tony and George about incorporating some of their concerns and their interests into the festival. So we ran a day of panel sessions that explored different aspects of the jazz infrastructure, if you will, nationally and internationally. The nature of festivals, for example, the role of heritage in a jazz festival. How do you address the tradition? And how do you invigorate it and inform people of it? How do you draw young people into a festival and give them a sense of history? And that seems to me to be a kind of important part of a festival's business these days, actually, is to enable the audience to discover and to be drawn into the bigger picture of what they're listening to and give them more information.
Knowledge exchange has been an integral part of all the work that we've done over the last 3 years. And to the point now, I think we're moving even beyond knowledge exchange to this idea of co-production, so where we're actually working collaboratively to deliver research projects with a common aim and goal at the end. So and drawing on each other's resources and expertise in order to achieve that. And quite often is that realisation that we are asking the same sorts of questions as researchers, albeit in slightly different ways. Some might be more explicit, some are implicit. And I think that realisation that there's a potential to achieve the same outcomes, but perhaps using different methods is fantastic. And this is where sort of synergy works between festivals and researchers.
I was unaware of the extent of the research programs into jazz until quite recently. I really welcome the arrival of this kind of research.